Hello again, and thank you for your interest in PMI Germany chapter local group Darmstadt. My name is Tawfiq Hable. I'm joining you from Lebanon, and today we have Ms. Amany Nuseibeh, who's joining us from Australia. Ms. Amany is doing a big effort to be here with us. It's 2 a.m. already in the morning, and she's in a good spirit. So today our session will be navigating the storm, strategies for managing conflicts in projects. So we will start by a small introduction. I will give the lead to Amany, and then she will do her presentation. Then we will have a part or a session for questions and answers. And then we will end our presentation by providing a site or a view about our upcoming events for this month or the next month in the coming period. Let's do some little bit of conduct. Please keep your microphone muted. Type your full name so we can identify you for the PDUs. You can share the video. We're recording this session. However, who don't want to be seen in the video, he can turn off his camera or he can leave the meeting. If you have any question, please use the chat box. Share your LinkedIn. It's good to connect. So Darmstadt is one of the 20 local groups in the region. There are 5 regions in Germany, more than 3,300 members. This is a very active chapter, and Darmstadt is one of these active local groups. We are 5 from 5 different countries. Me, Tawfiq, I'm joining you from Lebanon, and we have Elena, who is the group lead, Florian from France, Thomas from Germany, and Mohamed Razai is from Afghanistan. So Amany, who has an extensive contribution to the Project Management Institute, including her role as a past president to PMI Sydney chapter. Amany, would you please tell us more about yourself? Amany, you are muted, I believe.
Thank you, Tawfiq.
Sorry.
I'm delighted to be with you tonight and discuss with you conflict management. My experience really started in IT long time ago, and I progressed from being a programmer to being a team lead and then being a project manager. And that put me on a path of program management, portfolio management, PMO, and one of my roles has been the Chief Portfolio Officer at the Catholic Diocese of Maitland, Newcastle. Right now I'm consulting. I've got a couple of gigs consulting to different organizations for their PMO and governance. In terms of my volunteering role within PMI, I've been an events director. I've been director at large for 2 different chapters at the same time as well, conducting events for PMI Queensland and being director at large at Sydney, and then president and then past president. And I was part of the ethics member advisory group, chaired the ethics member advisory group, and then transformed into ethics insight team. And right now I'm one of the number of mediators around the world in terms of chapter conflict mediation. And I continue to contribute to PMI in different capacities. So thank you for this opportunity.
So the floor is yours, Amany. You can share your presentation, please.
Okay, thank you. Can you all see my presentation? Can you see my screen?
All right. Yes, all perfect. Yes.
Yeah,
excellent.
but you're showing all the slides.
Ah, okay. So it's in display mode. Okay.
Yes. That's it, yes.
You can see one slide now.
Not
No,
yet.
all.
Stop sharing. Okay, let me just.
Hi, Amany. Good to see you. Sorry, I was a little bit late.
Good to see you, Thomas, and thank you for this opportunity. Let me just navigate finding this. Now,
Yes.
excellent.
Yes,
Thank
it's
you.
perfect. Yes.
Great. Thank you for that. So today we'll be talking about navigating the storm, strategies for managing conflicts in projects. I'd like to start by paying respect. As you know, in Australia, most of us are migrants. So we start by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation as the traditional custodians of the land from where I am meeting with you today. I recognize their continuing connection to the land and waters and thank them for protecting this coastline and its ecosystem since time immemorial. I pay my respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to all First Nations people. Here are a few photos just to give you a little bit of background about me engaging with PMI as well as engaging with other organizations, panel discussions, and so on. So today we'll be talking about conflict. We talked about that in terms of understanding what is conflict, the role of conflict management in project management. We'll have a look at some examples in terms of the application of conflict resolution tactics and the strategies, and then transforming conflict into opportunity with some practical applications, and then we'll open the floor for questions and answers. So the question is, can any organization exist without conflict? No team, no organization can exist in their optimal approach without some sort of conflict. And the question is, why do they then get surprised when they have a conflict? Conflict is something natural that we need to look at, and I'll go into why it's natural. I'll be engaging with you guys and asking you to put things in the chats, and this is the first one. So let's reflect on the last work conflict you had. What advice would you give yourself right now that you would have liked to think about or to take into consideration when you were having that conflict? Stay calm, listen to the end. Do not take it personal. Yes, keep first calm and then, yep, understand the opposite view. Yep, think a moment. Think first, keep quiet, think first. Yep, what's the main source of the conflict? Goal. Take distance with the situation. Excellent. Consider the constraints that are not shared. Yep. Do not overreact. Excellent. Try to understand, making my point clear. Take your time. Great. Yes, all of these things are valid in terms of when facing with a conflict. Keeping calm. Why? Because we're human beings. We react when we're challenged. However, the question is, when you had all of that, how comfortable did you feel? And how safe did you feel? If you can, try to tell me, do you feel there's a difference between being comfortable and being safe. What are your thoughts on that? Conflicts are my daily business. I feel safe and comfortable. That's excellent. Okay, any other? Depends on the topic, how comfortable I feel. Excellent, yep, very relevant. If I'm able to take me out, everything is okay, interesting. When I am well prepared, more safe, less comfortable in conflicts. Yep, I like that one. Mostly uncomfortable, mostly safe, excellent, yep. Conflicts should take us outside the comfort zone for a while. Yes, never comfortable with conflicts. However, on rational level, feel safe in most cases. Good. Conflicts leads to drags on tasks. Less comfortable but safe. Yep, expecting conflicts will make you ready. It needs more than one person to have a conflict. Definitely. Conflict by definition is between two human beings. Okay, where we've got different sets of values, behaviors, interpretation, emotions, psychological state. And definitely, we are getting challenged about our views of the world, our ideas as we project them to the team, and so on. We should always feel safe, regardless of how comfortable or not comfortable we feel. Why? We're so used to being comfortable in our world. Everything is at the tips of our fingers to an extent that we as human beings looking for adventures in order not to be comfortable. People are going to extremes where they're going into freezing water not to feel comfortable, or putting themselves in a sauna in order for them not to feel comfortable. So our human nature asks for that lack of comfort in order to keep us going in some sense, to challenge us. But feeling safe is, as per Maslow's hierarchy of needs, safety is really a foundation. It's basic. We always need to feel safe. So what we need to understand is, as we are getting challenged, we still need that vulnerable safety to be in place. And that safety is by accepting that we are going to have different opinions from each other. We are going to get challenged. We might even have a slap on the face in terms of our beliefs, but we still feel safe. We can come back to the place the next day and talk about the topic. No emotions, feel secure, feel okay with that difference in opinions or in direction. So healthy organization care about truth and dignity, making sure that there is an exchange of ideas, but trust is important. And if I want to remind you of our PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct, we have 4 values: respect, responsibility, fairness, and honesty. So whatever we are having, whatever situation we're in, we need to be respectful to the other side, respectful to ourselves. So when we look back at our behavior the next day or the next month, we still feel proud of what we've done and how we behaved. So what is conflict in the context of project management? It's a state of discord caused by the actual or perceived opposition to our needs, values, and interests between people working together. In terms of project management, they can take many forms. It can be task conflict. Which one is going to be done? Who's going to do what? Relationship conflict. People aren't getting along together because they have different approaches to things. Or process conflict. We want to do this versus that. follow the rules and regulations or go around them. So where does it come from and in what way it's channeled? Miscommunication. I tell you something, you misunderstand me, or I tell you something and you tell me something else, and then we miscommunicate. And I want to share an example of that miscommunication. I had a friend whom we had this very same background, and we studied together at uni, where we used to do our assignments together. We would spend 15 minutes discussing, arguing, thinking that I have a point of view, she has a point of view. And yet, guess what? After 15 minutes to discover that we were talking about the very same thing in the same way, but using different words and that led to misinterpretation that we are getting into different ways while we're talking about the very same thing. And that's why, like when you told me that stepping back, taking a breath, making sure that we listen is very important. Bless you. We listen and try to understand is very important. So listening is very critical in trying to understand, asking for more clarity and patience on other things. Different priorities. I want to do my project report first. You want to deliver the work first or make a connection with some other resource. Resource allocation. We always don't have the right resources, or if we have these resources, they might be overwhelmed, burnt out. We might be competing for the same resource with another team or another department. That can be a source of conflict. Personality, we talked about that. People are not getting along because of different approaches or different styles. Poor management practices, that's another one. Favoritism, nepotism, being not communicating with one person versus not communicating with the other team members, not having a consistent message. The other one that we need to also consider is the COVID-19, the pandemic and the lockdown and the long-term impact on our health, whether it's mental or physical. Our level of anxiety once we hear that maybe COVID is back or some people are having some symptoms and so on. Like I attended the annual general meeting for PMI Sydney chapter just last week. This morning, I got an email from the lady who was sitting next to me telling me, Amany, you need to check yourself. Tim, our colleague, and herself got COVID. So thank God I don't have any symptoms. So I thought, thank you. No symptoms. I think I'm okay. So understanding the causes of the conflicts is very important in terms of how we want to deal with them and why people might end up having that different clashes or different values or different approaches to communication. So once again, we need to look at a conflict as we look at risk. Remember, when we look at risk, we have two parts of risk, threats and opportunities. So we need to look at a conflict in a similar fashion. So I want to quote Khalil Gibran in this occasion and what he says, if I accept the sunshine and the warmth, I must also accept the thunder and the lightning. And here is another quote from Albert Einstein. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. So we need to embrace conflicts just where we embrace risk and look at it as something that we can turn from something that isn't comfortable for us to an opportunity. How are we going to deal with this and how we are going to get to win-win situation? So a conflict, when managed effectively, provides opportunities for innovation. Why? Because there is a discussion. There's more ideas on the table, and these different ideas might provide a better solution. Team building, we understand each other. We're still respectful of each other, regardless of what we think or what we say. And once again, it's not not what we say, but also how we say it. And of course, improved communication. So that difference, that conflict can challenge the status quo, encourage critical thinking, and foster an environment of understanding and cooperation. So what are the types of conflict in project management in particular? Task conflict. So it arises when we've got a disagreement about content and outcomes of task. How we're going to do the task, what we're going to do, how it's going to be performed. Different views on how to achieve that goal or meet the deadline. The other one is a process conflict, the logistics of the task performance. So what does it take, the resources, the sequence. Relationship conflict, we talked about personal dislike and interpersonal incompatibility. Resource conflict, fighting for the same resources. That might be departmental, that might be within the different projects within the program, depends on the structure. So is there a decision-making framework for choosing a solution for the conflict? Of course, we need to understand, define the conflict. So the very first thing is really being able to spot the conflict. Is there a conflict really? Like, as I talked about my friend, we were arguing. Even though we were arguing, there wasn't really a conflict in such that where our direction is or what the outcome needs to be achieved. It was as a result of the miscommunication. So we need to clearly identify what is the issue that is causing the conflict. Understanding the needs and interests of all the parties involved. We need to analyze the situation. Is that issue important that's causing the conflict? Okay, is it critical? Or can we just dismiss it, sleep on it, and let it go? Relationship. Is the relationship important for us in terms of the conflicting parties? How important is it? Do we need to maintain it and keep it? Or it doesn't matter, this is a passing by person. Today I see that person, tomorrow they're not going to be in my life. The power dynamics, another important one. Is it a boss? Is it an executive? Is it a sponsor for the project? Is it a team member? Is it a colleague? What are the power dynamics in terms of this conflict? The time constraints. Do I need to resolve this conflict right now? Or there's no urgency. I can keep quiet, let it go and sleep on it and come back and resolve the situation or clear the air tomorrow. Very important in terms of the criticality and the urgency of the issue at hand. So we've got a few resolution strategies also that we can evaluate. Avoidance is one of them, whether it's trivial or there's no chance of winning. We know sometimes that if we discuss certain topics with certain people or we come with ideas where our bosses just want to deliver regardless, there's no chance of winning. The criticality and the timing dictate certain priorities, and therefore that's it. Accommodation. We want to move, let's say, the team meeting from 10 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Someone wants to drive their kids to school. Is it one-off or is it a continuous change to the meeting time? And is maintaining harmony and relationship more important than winning? Do we want to change it just because to win in order to suit one person? Or do we want to maintain relationships and harmony within the team and therefore we're okay to accommodate a later time meeting, for example? Competition, we really need to be quick and decisive. Action is needed now. There's no time or no room to wait. Another one is compromise. You would find this amongst yourselves, amongst your friends. Something is important to me, not that important today. I can let it go. I can just meet the person in the middle in order for me to keep the harmony. Once again, all of these have their pros and cons. What's the value of keeping that harmony compared to sacrificing the objective or the direction? The other one is collaboration. The issue and the relationship are important. Is there enough time for us to trust and open for discussion? So we have different ideas and we have different direction. We've got time, there's no urgency. Let's have a brainstorming session. Let's call for a workshop and work together on fleshing it out in order to get more ideas or to reach a conclusion. So we need to choose which resolution strategy is the most suitable. And of course, we need to implement it after that based on that analysis. Some of these analysis, by the way, doesn't take time. Like our brain work very quickly in order for it to establish which direction we want to go, provided that we have control of our emotions at that point in time. We evaluate the outcome in terms of, okay, we've addressed the situation, we applied the strategy. How did that go? Did it resolve the conflict? Are we feeling safe? Are we feeling comfortable? What could have we done differently in order for our colleagues or our team members to feel more comfortable and more safe? Or not comfortable because we're discussing things, but safe regardless of the situation. I want to ask an open question here. Does this framework remind you of any framework that you know from PMI? Risk management, good, thank you, yep. Positives, negatives, analyzing, looking at the different approaches, weighing them off, and then implementing, and then looking back. Another framework. Okay,
Procurement.
I'll give you.
Procurement.
Well, just to give you an idea, procurement could be, but like what I'm referring to in terms of the PMI ethical decision-making framework. It's all about knowing what the situation is in terms of the ethical dilemma. Yep, conflict resolution framework as well. Yep, excellent. So you've got a dilemma, you've got a situation. You always have to understand the situation, then analyze the situation, that look at what the strategies are to apply to that situation, implement the chosen strategy, and then reflect back in terms of lessons learned, how did it work, is there any follow-up that is needed. All framework have these major steps in terms of how we tackle them, regardless of what it's called, put it this way. We give them fancy names, but at the end of the day, they're similar in terms of what we're trying to do. The other one is the very first approach to conflict, and you would have heard this before, change starts with me, conflict starts with me as well. Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? What approach can I take and what changes can I make? Looking ourselves in the mirror sometimes is very difficult. And trying to analyze this situation from a helicopter view or a bird eye view helps in terms of, okay, what have I done? What could I have done when I was faced with this situation? Is there anything else that I should have paid attention to or got to control of my emotions or even stayed quiet for a while until I listened to the whole story? So it's very important for us to reflect on ourselves and how we can contribute to just having that conflict in a very respectful manner that will lead to a good resolution. So here's in the chat, I want you to reflect on what you do. Do you stay silent when conflict arises? Okay, for sure not. I pause to think and reflect, not in the long term, not at all. Okay. Ahmed Khalaf, I want to address your comment, but a little bit later. Like there's always horses for courses in terms of situations, and sometimes you might choose to lose in order for you to win in the long term if you want to maintain relationships. Yep. Not in the long term, not at all. It depends on matter. May I ask or I wait? Okay, no, mostly yes. If it comes by surprise, try to identify and resolve. Okay, excellent. So yes, there are times where silence is gold. And this is very important to differentiate. When we feel we're so emotional, the last thing we want to do is really talk, because we're going to regret what we say if we're really very emotional, and we can never take it back. That's the problem when we say something out whenever we're very angry, very frustrated. So maybe taking a breath and staying silent is the best thing to do. However, there are times where it's important not to stay silent. Do you know of any situations that you think it's important not to stay silent? As leaders, why it's important not to stay silent in certain situations? Get more information about the background. You need to clarify your position. Yes. Yeah, to not hurt yourself. That's a good one. Yep. In case of bullying or harassment. Yes. Yes, you need to address the situation. Yes. Protect others against offense. Yes. Prevent the conflict from escalation. Not to be silent if I am sure we are about to fall from the cliff. Yes. So there are situations where you have to speak up. You have to address the situation, because the standard that you walk past or the behavior you walk past is the standard you accept. So as the project manager, as the leader of a team, if you're seeing a conflict and you're not happy with the behavior of one team member against the other and you stay quiet, you're sending a signal that this behavior is acceptable and this is not the way for us to do the work, because you'll end up demoralizing the whole team and losing trust in your leadership. And that's the last thing you want to do. So if it's a harassment, if it's a bullying, if it's something that's really urgent, it needs to be addressed, and addressed immediately. You can call on them. You can take them to a meeting room. You can have the conversation in a very realistic and logical manner, but it's very, very important to address certain situations. So which conflict resolution strategy to use? Going back, we talked about the importance of the issue. If it's high importance, then the outcome strategies like competition and collaboration would work for that important issue. Relationship, accommodation. You want to accommodate the relationship. You want to still be amicable with that person. But if the relationship, as we said, it's less important, then you might let it go. Time constraints are important, power dynamics we talked about, and cultural differences. This is very important. In this day and age, we all deal with different people from different cultures, whether we deal with them in person or online. And there are different norms that we need to be aware of in terms of setting expectations and understanding the approach. Some cultures are very emotive in terms of expression. We might think, why is this person angry? Or why they're upset? No, but no, that's their way of expressing themselves, and that's the norm. So we need to be considerate in terms of understanding where the person comes from, and in order for us to be able to choose the right strategy. Remember, open communication is very important. Collaborative problem solving, role clarification. Like everyone has a kickoff meeting, for example, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But when you do your deliverables, your outputs, clarifying who's going to be responsible, who's going to be accountable, who's going to be consulted, who's going to be informed, the ratio or supporting. Very important that role clarification to be communicated and reiterated in some instances to the team and the stakeholders. So soon you resolve any sort of conflict in terms of power, in terms of I do this, you do that. The level you don't want to get into is really third-party mediation. But if things come too much, the team becomes too much absorbed into that conflict with alarming signs, you might want to get another person from the outside who's not involved emotionally or in terms of being with the team in order to mediate the situation and look at it with a helicopter view. The other one, conflict management training. The more we learn, the more we're able to counteract any sort of conflicts or to manage them in the most proper, fruitful way. There are also common mistakes to avoid. Avoiding conflict. Even if you stay quiet, you're not avoiding the conflict completely. Why? You might sleep on it and come and to have a conversation the next day. So trying to pretend that there is no conflict is a mistake, because it's like a little seed. Little seeds grow and they might become big trees if they're not attended to. And little issues become obstacles if they're not attended to in a timely manner. So once again, silence is good, but you still need to deal with the conflict depending on the situation. The other one is jumping to conclusion, like, we're oriented towards solutions. We have assumptions, and you remember, assume assumptions, it makes an ass of you and me. So we don't want to assume anything. We need to ask questions and more questions or have more clarity. And I'll go into an approach about doing that. The other one is focusing on personalities in that conversation or on that conflict instead of issues. Remember, we're having a disagreement about something. It's not a disagreement between the two people, because the two people have different personalities. We know that. They might not even have the same approaches. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that there's a clarity of what the outcome that needs to be achieved. There's a sense of purpose. So every project manager, every leader need to instill that sense of purpose into their team in order for any difficulties or challenges to be resolved. And therefore, people are outcome focused, regardless of what difference in opinions, in approaches they have in order to enable them to discuss. The other one is forcing a solution. That's very bitter. It leaves a very bitter taste, and it really evaporates the belief in leadership. Forcing a solution, try not to. Like, as much as possible, avoid that forcing a solution. You want people to come together and reach a solution together in a collaborative manner. Neglecting follow-up. So this is another one. Look, whatever you applied, whatever you've done, remember, we need lessons learned. At the end of the day, we need to make sure that whatever we've done has achieved its objective and nothing ended up being byproduct of what we've done. So that's why we follow up. So the following slides are from a recent webinar that I attended, and it's based on a new book called How to the Powerful Phrases that will help you dealing with workplace conflict. And it's really good that I thought this is an excellent opportunity to give you a taste of that webinar and the book. I've ordered the book, it's yet to come. So they talk about 4 dimensions of constructive conflict. No matter what the sort of conflict, whether you have it with a colleague at work, within the project, within a different stakeholder, or even with your partner at home, the very first step is connection, which means we look at each other as human beings. We respect each other. We understand we have different opinions, but respect is very important. And then we seek clarity. Do we have a shared understanding of success? What does success mean? Where are our KPIs? Are we achieving them? The third one is curiosity. Are we genuinely interested in other perspectives and what's possible? Like really, I have my opinion, but I care about you and I want to know what your opinion is. Maybe both of us will be able to work something even better than what each one is thinking. And the other one is reaching a conclusion, a commitment in terms of a clear agreement of next step. And we all understand how we run meetings and we take action items and then we ask the team, okay, what are you going to do? When are you going to deliver? So that gives us a taste of what we're trying to achieve. So these 4 dimensions make the conflict productive and collaborative. And let me take you through it. So we said connection, commitment, clarity, and curiosity. Is there a way or an approach for that? Talked about we know one another as human beings. So what can we say that will establish that connection? Tell me more. It sounds like you're feeling, for example, upset right now or emotional. Is that right? I care about you or about the team or the project, and I'm confident we can find a solution we can all work with. So these are the statements, examples of statements to establish connection, showing that humanistic way and caring about the next person. Clarity, shared understanding of success. So what would a successful outcome do for you? Or what I'm hearing you say is, for example, do I have that right? Trying to make sure that you understand the other person's view. Remember, communication is message sender, message receiver. Between the sender and receiver, there might be any sort of disruption and therefore misinterpretation of that message. And therefore repeating that message in terms of my understanding of what you said or what I heard is critical in terms of getting to that clarity. Or let's start with what we agree on. Obama was well known for trying to resolve conflicts by starting what we agree on and then moving on to the things that have differences. Curiosity, we are genuinely interested in other perspectives and what's possible. So examples of curiosity statements. I'm curious how this looks from your perspective. What do you suggest we do next? What can I do to support you right now? That's another one. Commitment, so reaching that conclusion of having a clear agreement. What's one action we can both agree to as the next step? After you got the clarity, after you got the solution from the other person's perspective or from the team. Another statement, to recap, we've agreed to do so and so. Is that your understanding? The other one, let's schedule time to talk about this again and see how our solution is working. Remember, we need that commitment and we need to come back to whatever has been the result. So, want to have now this with you guys in the chat. So, the authors, Karen Hurt and David Dye, called these in their book as the greatest of all times. GOAT stands for the greatest of all times in terms of statements. So here's the connection, the statements we had as examples, and then curiosity and clarity and commitment. And I'll give you a situation, and I'd like you to construct from these in order, if you can, what statements would you use to reach a solution for that conflict? Okay. You have a teammate who crushes all your good ideas. Where do you start? What do you do? Which statement do you apply in terms of the greatest of all times? So when I flick to look at the chat, do you see my screen on the chat, or do you see the slide? You see the slide? Okay. Excellent.
Yes, we're seeing the slides.
Excellent. Yeah, because I want to have a look at the chat while looking at the slide. Excellent. Okay, curiosity, other perspective. What would the successful outcome? Yep, I'm curious how this looks from your perspective. Curiosity, what do you suggest? Yep, I would encourage you to try to start with connection and then move on to 1 or 2 or 3 in terms of these things. Remember, we said try to start with connection. Why is that? Because it's a way of approaching the humanistic traits in the person in front of you. Clarity, why don't you like it? Yes, but it also depends on the tone. If you are curious, you will reach the connections. Yeah, well, yes, that's right. So if you don't start then with connections, maybe you start with curiosity. I'm with you. Then you get clarity. Excellent. Okay, so what questions would you use from these 3 questions that are in that slide? Like, yep. And get clarity and daily commit. Yep. Yes, any other answers? First state my observation of the shredding, then my feeling uncomfortable, okay, and then ask for his or her concrete proposal as my wish. Okay. Seems that you feel different. Is that right? Okay. Yep. Okay. So let me give you the optimum response according to Karen and David. We connect. I'd like to explore this with you. Would you be open to hearing my idea to dramatically reduce something, for example? I imagine you have concerns about this idea. Here's what I recommend, or this situation, here's what I recommend. And then help with clarity. Here's exactly how we can make this happen. Because remember, we have to reach a certain outcome that we agree on. And then moving to commitment. Here's the support I would need from you. Can we do this? Okay, you are overwhelmed and need to say no to new projects. Your boss comes and gives you another project and say, no, that's it. So, applying the greatest of all times. Where do you start and which part of these would you use to say no to your boss? Clarity, why no? Yes? Connect and commit, yes? I'm curious how this looks from your perspective. Yes, and I love the emoji. I would first ask him if I understood correctly. Curiosity, good one. Playing dumb. I find it works. Connection, I care about X, Y, Z, so it would not be good to do more. Okay, yes. Yes, I'll wait for another answer and then move on. Come on, who's the lucky one? To recap the past agreements. Ah, yeah, okay, that's another way. Who else is handling other projects? Curious. Okay, let me take you through what Karen and David suggested. So when you need to say no to your boss, I'm deeply committed to the success of the group and to this project. What you're asking me to do here would mean, for example, jeopardizing project A, B, and C, which concerns me because of, for example, the risk of not getting the client on board or not being able to achieve what we wanted or reach the target. An alternative approach might be, for example, giving this project to someone else or taking one of the projects off my hands in order for me to be able to do this. So what's the criticality of the project that you're suggesting that I take? These are just examples that how you can approach it. And you don't want to be aggressive. You want to be assertive in a nice way. So remember, as you construct these in terms of the greatest of all times, the tone is very important. The body language is very important. It signals how you feel about it. It signals respect. It signals confidence. And that's very important. The other one I want to make you pay attention to, what if that conflict wasn't resolved and still escalating? Are there any sort of alarm bells that we need to pay attention to? Increased emotional intensity. That's one. If you feel the team isn't working together, more frustration, there's anger, there's resentment, rolling of eyes, and so on. Personal attacks. People are attacking each other, blaming. Yep. Avoidance or withdrawal. Be careful when your best performing team member is staying quiet and naturally. That's not their norm, which means there's something wrong. They're withdrawing. They might have felt devalued as a result of the situation. So be careful. Decreased productivity. Conflict is, if not resolved correctly, it is toxic and it results in a toxic environment where people feel demoralized, not significant, not being heard, and therefore their productivity plummets. Increased complaints, you would hear like comments even about, this one isn't doing their job and so on. The other one is really these small groups that are gossiping in the kitchen and so on. Be very careful. That's really not conducive of a good environment and a team that wants to be a performing, high-performing team. At kickoff, we as project manager, we set the rules. So it's very important to set the expectations from the beginning in order to know how conflicts will be resolved. Clear expectations, communication guidelines, how we're going to communicate, how disagreements will be handled. We all create a project charter. Do we create a team charter about the team, their mission, how they're going to collaborate and work together? Encouraging open dialogue is very important. For example, if you're sourcing ideas and you've got a very quiet person in the room who doesn't put their hand up, go around the room one by one and ask for their ideas. The best ideas might come from those who stayed quiet. Some cultures, they don't speak up. Other cultures, they speak over other people because that's their culture. And therefore, you want to give that opportunity to everyone. Extrovert versus introvert. Source the ideas from everyone. Conflict resolution training, we talked about building relationship. You always want to foster a good relationship between the team. whether you try to do modeling for them in terms of their profiles in order to tell them how to communicate, like SDI, LSD, whatever, Briggs-Myers, for example, in order to bring the team together to understand how their priorities are, their way, their emotions, their way of communicating, or even having lunch or coffee together, talking about what's important for them, bringing them together. And even if you have an online team, have like a break, a coffee break, 10 minutes for them to talk. Very important. Each one bring their favorite drink and have that conversation online. That's all right. They still can build relationships outside that formality. In a cross-cultural conflict also, remember there are language barriers. People might not be able to express themselves the way they want or use words that might feel offensive to other cultures. Very important. I'll give you an example. There's a common question here in Australia. Oh, like, I don't want someone to think that this person is from the street. In a Middle Eastern culture, when you say about someone from the street, it's very, very offensive. So when a friend of mine heard it for the very first time, she came to me crying, literally. Oh my God, that's what they said about me. No, this is just their way of speaking. So very important to understand language barriers. I'll give you also an example. Japanese culture. They say, hey, hi, with a nod. Hi means yes. However, when they say hi, it doesn't mean yes. It means I understand you. So we need to understand that when they say yes, that it doesn't mean the yes in our contextual yes, which means I agree and I'm going to do it. It means I understand, but yet there's more to come, which means the conversation needs to keep going or you need some sort of affirmation. Australians, they might start saying, oh yeah, no. You think, oh, you got the yes, but they said no, or no, oh yeah. So once again, you need to have an understanding that second thing, the last thing is the thing that really is going to count. Non-verbal communication. We talked about body language, tone, different conflict resolution styles. Some people would try to avoid. Some people try to confront it heads on. So be aware of these different styles. Values and beliefs, once again, context, high context versus low context communication. So if the culture map from Erin Meyer, wanted to show you the book. That's like a few years it's been since that book, but it gives you an idea about the cultures in terms of high context versus low context and reading there as it's expressed in Japan, for example. Power distance, that's another thing. Who's got the ultimate power and influence in terms of imposing or doing something? So once again, in terms of applying the resolutions, we need to understand the cultural differences, respect these differences, put it this way. Very important, even though certain things might not seem okay for us, but the culture dictates certain behaviors and certain actions. We need to adapt our approach. What worked well yesterday might not work well today. You're trying to reach a consensus. In certain cultures, they value consensus much more than directive approach. So you need to be aware of what the team is like, what's the culture within the team that is workable for you. And you can seek help always. There's always someone from HR, a volunteer maybe from PMI who can assist and help with that. And the other one is communicate clearly and effectively. Once again, when there's like a misunderstanding and there's a language barrier, I always tell people write it down. When we read it, it's much easier for us to try to decipher. And when we read something, that emotion isn't conveyed in the tone. However, it's our emotion that is projected on what we're reading. So we still need to be careful. So here's an example in a multinational corporation, for example, in terms of priorities. If you have, for example, two different teams with different priorities, they're going to collide and have a conflict on who's going to do what and what are their priorities. I'll leave this, like you can have the slides, but I'm aware of the time in order for us to speed up this. The other one, just like anything else, there's a measure of success for conflict. And it's really about timing, recurrence, satisfaction, project performance, the team dynamics, and the individual growth. So here are the takeaways summarizing. Today, we talked about understanding what a conflict is, conflict as a challenge and an opportunity. Remember, it's like a risk. You want to turn the threat into an opportunity. What it does to project management is very important of how we deal with it. We transform the team into a team that's collaborative. We transform disagreements into opportunities for growth and creativity. We look at the strategies, which one we want to apply and which one is more suitable to the situation at hand. We talked about avoidance, accommodation, competition, compromise, and collaboration. And we had a few applications for that with an understanding of cross-cultural considerations and differences. And I want to finish with, no matter how long the storm lasts, the sun always shines behind the clouds. When there's a conflict, we feel that negativity, that emotions. But remember, after the storm, there are the clouds. Another quote from Khalil Gibran. Thank you, and I'll open the floor for questions. Okay, what do you think about this framework? Focus, prepare by securing non-lose outcome, have a plan for escalation and be ready to walk away from the solution. Discussion with credible warnings of actions and that threaten the other conflict parties' outcome. Connection, explain the win-win. Okay, clarity, early on discussion. I make sure the other side understand that I will not accept a lose-win unless the acknowledgement that I'll let pass this time and that they owe me. Commitment, collaborate on achieving win-win. Okay, the method is good. The tone within the words is a little bit coming across to me as I'm reading it, as if there's a threatening tone. So I would suggest, once again, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. How can you word it to be kind to the person in front of you? How would you word it in a way that you yourself, if you're told these statements, accept it? Very important. So the framework is good. I would just reword it in a way where it's kind. And put it this way. Use AI if you're not sure. Put the statement and say, can you put this in a friendly manner? AI will give you that. Mm-hmm. Then put the same statement and say, can you put it in a formal manner? It gives you the friendly version. It gives you the formal version. It will improve it, and therefore you're getting more than one idea of how to handle the same sentence that you constructed in your mind. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Amany. Thank you for your time. It was a wonderful session. You brought live problems that we encounter on our daily life.
There was one hand raised. Sorry for interrupting. There was one hand. Yes,
I would take the time for questions now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can keep going. Yes. Yes, super hint, engaging AI. Yes, I can tell you I engaged AI for my presentation. So, and almost all the pictures are from AI, and it's really, it expedites the time that I needed in order to prepare this presentation. The challenge is to know how to ask the questions and how not only to accept the very first answer. Remember, AI has its own unconscious bias. And this is another thing that I want to warn you guys about. We all have unconscious bias that comes from our upbringing, from the things we're exposed to, whether it's in the media, on TV, and so on. So it's very important to know that even when we're consulting with AI, AI is bringing whatever it has been fed to. So be aware and be wary of that unconscious bias. Okay, what is the best strategy if the already resolved conflicts happen again and again after some time? Imagine a persistent and difficult stakeholders who has authority. Okay, there is a time where you choose to walk away, and it happens, put it this way, because you try your best, you give your best, but you're not reaching a solution. Whether it's like that conflict is as a result of behavior, let's say harassment, bullying, or because you're not appreciated or recognized. There will be a time where you say, I've tried every possible solution, it's affecting my well-being, and then you choose to look for another project, another boss, another organization. Yep. The chat won't load for me, and I'm sure if my messages go through. However, this is a very good presentation. Okay, thank you. What was the top 2 challenges, conflicts you faced in aviation industry? That's interesting. Okay, you mean like when I worked for Qantas? Or do you mean what's the aviation industry is facing right now? My challenge when I started for Qantas was I was a fresh new migrant. So I wasn't sure of how to say things or how to object about things, and I started observing things. There was a time when I volunteered for the what we call here the emergency team in terms of attending to fires and evacuation and so on. And I was sitting in the meeting room while 2 people were talking about taking a list of what observation of occupational health and safety hazards are needed to be listed down in order for them to be attended to. And they were really fighting in terms of, oh, no, we're going to list them that way. No, we're going to list them that way. And because I was observing, I said, why don't you call the person and ask them how they would like to see it? And that resolved the whole conflict. Sometimes it's just easy to see if you're observing, you detach yourself, much easier to resolve anything. Remember, my emotions weren't there. I was just resolving. The other one in the airline industry, it's really working on projects, massive projects, where in order for you to be able to justify any savings in the business case, you need to be aware, and your stakeholders need to be aware that that will be coming out of their budget the year following your project being implemented. So it's very challenging to get these benefits valued, articulated, measured in terms of dollars or percentages, because your sponsor will say, really, is it, for example, $10,000 or is it $5,000? Is it 10% or is it 5%? And that's the challenge. In terms of what's happening in the airline industry now, you would have heard about the whistleblowing and the lack of rigor in quality in terms of the Boeing. The 737 MAX, like it took a few incidents and accidents, and death of innocent people in order to pay attention that this system, because they wanted to expedite it, wasn't tested end to end fully. It was tested as only the change. And that gives us an understanding that sometimes we undermine the piece of work that we do, not integrating it with the full picture and not taking into consideration the end-to-end, because it's going to take more time, it's going to take more money. So sacrificing quality for that is not good, especially when you're talking about lives. Okay, next one. Yep, if you are trying to resolve a conflict with a teammate or project team member, you need to be also open-minded, definitely. And that's why listening is important, and detaching yourself a little bit from your own ideas in order for you to be able to be receptive to these ideas. The worst attitude is being passive-aggressive. Yes, how to deal with such a type of colleague. What you can do, take that colleague on the side and say, I feel that when you respond in such a way as if you're attacking me, can we just work on this in terms of wording things differently or confronting things differently so we can work on it together to do this or to achieve that and so on. Or you can send them some sort of a webinar about the tone of the communication, or attend one with them. That's another way. Give them a nudge. Let's attend this. It looks really good. Otherwise, you will impose your perspective, opinion on others. No, you don't want to do that. And this is another thing that I'd like to say. I've seen leaders, CEOs, go into a meeting room in order to workshop something, and the very first thing they say their opinion. Don't do that if you're trying to source ideas. If you're the leader in a room and you want to source ideas, you want to hear from everyone. If you say your ideas first, you shut the discussion. Never, ever. You want to hear, you want to source, and then you'll be the mediator as the leader in terms of what they're saying. Okay, any other questions? Thank you, guys. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Thomas. I'd like also to thank my colleague in the EMAG, John Watson. We had a discussion about this presentation, and I always value his opinion, and he shared like a presentation with me that he's done with another colleague. So it's been really great. And yep, happy to be invited once again, put it this way, in the future.
Thank you so much.
If the need be. So yeah, thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Amany, for being here. It was really great. And, you know, we know each other for some years. And so this came to a fruitful cooperation. And I appreciate that you are saying you will come again if you are invited. But I understand, you know, you are living down under. So it's not easy to get up at inconvenient times. And luckily, the participants are the majority and somehow decide when it will happen. So what is your timing right now?
It's 3:20 a.m. I'd like us to take a picture that I